Christiana Gaudet. I'm here with more answers to your questions about tarot. And today I have actually two questions coming from Jean-Philippe. He's a new tarot student. He works with Tarot de Marseille, and he is definitely on a spiritual journey. Here are his questions. The first, learning tarot is somewhat lengthy. I can't seem to read the tarot if I don't have the book with me. Do you have any tips on how to be able to use tarot or learn it in a way that is simple and straightforward? I read for some friends and family, and pulling out the booklet seems to lose the tarot's credibility for them. So the first question is about ways to learn tarot. The second question, while I love tarot, I've opened up to many different divinations. I was wondering if you use other tools during a tarot reading. This is something I would love to do. Since a book I translated is called Chinese Fortune Sticks, I feel like I could adopt this as a second tool to enhance the reading. Is this something that is common with practitioners, or do most stick to one tool? We're going to start with the first question, which is about how to learn tarot. I have 4 suggestions for you that can help you learn the cards. The final one, the fourth one, actually refers back to your comment about how pulling out the booklet takes away from your credibility. We're going to talk about that. Okay, but first, I would say arguably, and this may be especially true if you're reading with the Marseille deck, the 40 pip cards, the minor arcana cards, ace through 10, may be the very hardest to memorize. Some would say the court cards are the hardest to interpret. But when we talk about memorization, I would say those 40 cards are probably the ones that most people get hung up on. So my first suggestion is to break it into the 4 elements and numerology. Numerology, ace through 10, 1 through 10. 4 elements, earth, air, fire, water. And of course, the 4 elements connected to the 4 suits of the minor arcana. We understand the attributes of those 4 elements. So we understand that your air cards, your swords cards, they're all going to be about powers of the mind in some way. They could be about thoughts or ideas or communication or trust. But that's what they're going to be about. Cups, water. Water is about emotions. Your cups cards are all going to be about emotions. They're going to be about love. They're going to be about feeling. Your pentacles cards, these are going to be about material things, about job, about money, about health, about home, about the basic stuff, and so on. So you know what the 4 elements mean. So then you have the numbers, in tarot, 10 numbers. In numerology, really, there are only 9 numbers. When we look at the 10 in tarot, we recognize that the 10s read differently than the aces, but that in a way, the 10 is the completion of the cycle and the higher octave of that 1 energy. So what is the 1 or ace energy? Well, aces are the source or the essence of their element. They can also be about new beginnings. So let's play with that for a minute. So if an ace is a new beginning and cups could be about love and emotion, then the ace of cups could be a new relationship. If aces are about new beginnings and pentacles are about money and job and material things, then the ace of pentacles could be new money or a new job. And you can do that with all the numbers. And that's a way to think about it and play with it. So That's my first piece of advice, regardless of the deck you work with, to think about numbers and the 4 elements, put them together, suddenly it all makes sense. My second suggestion is to assign keywords to each card and create old-fashioned flashcards with the keywords on one side and the name of the card on the other. Don't even worry about the pictures right now. I think it's very important not only to associate the meanings with the images, but also to associate the meanings with the name of the card. I should be able to say 7 of Cups, and you should be able to picture what your 7 of Cups looks like in at least one deck, and call to mind immediately at least some keywords for that card. So your flashcard will help you do that. Now, the third suggestion is to work with the images. And yes, it's true. If you use a more fully illustrated deck, you have more to work with when you work with the images. But there are so many awesome Marseille readers. I am not going to say that Marseille is the easiest deck to memorize, but I am going to say it's absolutely doable. And if you want to do it, you can. Okay. So, look at each image. Think about the keywords for each image, for each card, and try to associate something in the image that will click for you. So when you see the image, you'll remember the keywords. It could be a color, it could be a shape, it could be an arrangement, it could be, if you're using, say, a weight deck, what people are doing. But find something visual to associate with. So these things will help you. But now we come to my fourth and most important suggestion, and I want to go back, okay, to what you wrote in your question here. I read for some friends and family, and pulling out the booklet seems to lose the tarot's credibility. Well, here is the great irony. The very best way to learn tarot is to read for yourself, to read for other people, and to use the book. To use many books, to use your smartphone or your tablet and just Google on the card and see what 5 different people have to say about the card. That is the very best way to learn. Now, if you go to a psychic fair or if you go to a professional reader and they're referring to a booklet about what the cards mean, that's just tacky. That is inappropriate. But if you are a tarot student, by all means refer to the booklet. That is not the interpretation of the tarot card. That is the written book interpretation. The interpretation of the card is what you as the reader do. And your card interpretation is formed from the classic meanings of the cards, the context of the question or the position in which the cards fell, how the cards relate to each other in the spread, and your own intuition. So those book meanings are really just a part, an important part, but a part of what the interpretation of the reading actually is. Now, you got to get those meanings from somewhere. I have them in my head. You have them in a book. I used to have them in a book for about a year. I would carry 3 books around with me. So when someone wanted a reading, and of course I wasn't charging then, I was just doing it for practice, but when someone wanted a reading, I'd put out the cards, I'd pull out my 3 books, we'd look at the meanings, and do the interpretations from there. You lay the cards out, and you start with the first card. You say, okay, so in the position of past, we have the Page of Swords. Let's see what Mary Greer has to say about the Page of Swords. Refer to whoever you want. Get the book or bring it up on your phone and tablet. Look at it. You can read it aloud to your client, but that is not the interpretation. That's what someone else has said about this card. But now you have that. What are you going to say about the card? You're going to think about everything you know, about the question, about the other cards that have come up, about your intuition. You're going to take what you've just read in the book and you're going to give your interpretation. By doing this process often, you will memorize the cards very quickly. Eventually, it will just be too much trouble to go to the book. Now, the other thing to think about when we talk about this aspect of interpretation, the difference between a book interpretation and an actual interpretation that is a reading, one of the things we can look at, and I think this is interesting that you mentioned the Chinese fortune sticks. I Ching is a wonderful example of a divination method where we always refer to the book. I could be wrong, but I doubt there are very many people who have memorized all 64 hexagrams and all of those moving lines. You need the book. You go to the book, you read what it says, and then you add to the interpretation based on the context of the question and the situation. So that brings us very neatly into the second question, which is all about, is it okay to combine methods and skills, different tools of divination with tarot? And the answer is, oh, yes, absolutely. This is how you create your own style as a reader. You know, I don't do a lot of in-person work, but when I do, I love to look at someone's hands. Sometimes when we're on Skype, I'll ask you to hold up your hands just so I can take a look at the shape of your fingers and the lines on your hand, because you can get a lot of information from that. A lot of tarot readers are also astrologers, and we'll bring astrology into it. Some people like to work with a pendulum. Whatever tool you have, you can integrate it into the tarot reading in whatever way works for you. Use trial and error to figure it out. Use intuition to figure it out. Just recognize you are allowed to create a system that works for you, that allows you to give a great comprehensive reading, and a reading that no one else can give but you. You know, there are many, many great readers in the world, but we each have our own unique reading style. The questions that you have asked today, Jean-Philippe, tell me that you are well on your way to developing that style. I want to thank you so much for a great question. And if you have a question about tarot, send me an email.